Business Today, BizChat to be specific. We'll take a tangent onto March's economic survey where the number of employed Kenyans increased by over 800,000 people last year to stand at 19.1 million people. This despite a slow economic growth rate of 4.8% due to a prolonged drought period, according to the economic survey report released by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Key socio-economic factors are of concern, including higher crime rates and slower rates in enrollment into schools. Jimmy Mbogo breaks it down.
According to the economic survey, Kenya's economy grew slower in 2022 to register a growth of 4.8%, down from 7.6% in 2021. Despite the slowdown, the number of Kenyans in formal employment grew by 3.8%, with 109,300 new jobs being created. But as in the previous years, informal jobs created the highest number of new jobs, employing an additional 702,900 Kenyans, with access to formal job market remaining limited.
Most of our jobs are actually in the informal sector. That is one key thing to note. And of course, we are still reminding you that we have not included the small-scale agriculture and pastoral activities.
Out of 19.1 million people in the labor force, 85% or 16 million worked in the micro, small and medium enterprises in 2002. And I note that a total of 816.6 thousand new jobs were generated despite the slowdown in the economy in 2022.
Of concern is the increasing number of reported crimes in the country, which according to the report has increased by 8.4% to stand at 88,083 in 2022, leading to an increase in the number of prison population from 160,121 in 2021 to 169,579 in 2022. Offenses against persons, theft, penal code offenses, offenses against morality and drug make the top 5 crimes committed in the country last year.
Crimes reported by the police to the police, this has increased, so that is a case to worry about. Then court cases, we have had a number of them that were reported 43,000, but the ones that were disposed of were 381,877.
The rising crime rate putting a further strain on the judicial service, which has a 664,164 cases pending, up from an increase of 403,182 new cases, a number that is higher than the 381,877 cases that have been disposed of. Data analysts, however, remain a wary lot of the trend in the education sector, which has recorded minimal growth. For instance, primary education rose by a mere 0.8% to stand at 10,364,500 in 2022, while secondary school enrollment grew by 5.4% to 3.9 million in 2022, while enrollment in TVETs and institutions of higher learning grew by 11.7% to 562.5 thousand in 2022.
The number of ECDs and primary schools actually went down, meaning that for the private schools, some of them were seriously affected by COVID-19 and they could not withstand it.
With the data now available to government, the ball now lies squarely on the executive to ensure that government spending in the next budget is channeled towards the right sectors. Jimmy Mbogo, KTN News, Nairobi.
Thank you very much, Jimmy, for that report. Ken, numbers are quite telling, you know. You can never hide something if we have true numbers. And just looking at the economic survey 2023, starting first of all with those employment numbers, because you're a huge proponent of employment as a key indicator of how an economy performs. And I mean, developing economies, they have almost monthly numbers, weekly numbers of employment, which we don't have. But so far, for the numbers that we have for the year 2022, MSME is still the majority employer in this country. We call them informal. What's your take on that?
Well, it's good that the number of people in employment has gone up by 800,000 people, and it's going up to pre-COVID levels. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good story, and you're absolutely right that these numbers need to be coming out on a monthly basis, not on an annual basis, and also with a bit more granularity in terms of which counties were these jobs being created, which sectors were these jobs, because it also helps even the people in the universities, higher academia, to be able to align with the sectors that are growing. So it's a good story that there are more people joining the labor force, but I think from a policy perspective, it makes it hard to make interventions. So I think if we can break them down into monthly and counties and sectors, I think we can have a much more richer conversation.
Definitely. The employment numbers, apart from that, also just looking at the different sectors, the way they are performing. Dr. Kamau, I know you are in the education business. Looking at the numbers for the year 2022 enrollments, what do you have to make of that? The figures that Jimmy has mentioned in the report.
Yes, as my colleague Ken has said, that it is a good thing that the labor force grew by about 800,000. And mostly that happened in the manufacturing sector, the trade sector, the transport sector. And this is where maybe the government should also try to direct the resources of the government in order to enhance and ensure that it creates a conducive environment for this sector that are doing well to continue doing better and better. As opposed to what the president announced that we about exporting labor. Because when we continue to export labor, what we are doing is we are experiencing a brain drain. And these are the kind of people that we should be trying to retain here, so that when we push to grow the contribution of manufacturing sector to the GDP, that would be a possibility. But when we keep exporting labor, because exporting labor is like exporting raw materials. And raw materials, they never bring back good foreign currency. But when we add value, and then we export as finished products, then we are likely to even experience a good and positive trade surplus instead of trade deficit. That's
quite interesting. Ken, I mean, I'm looking at this issue, what Dr. has just mentioned on exporting labor, because we have an oversupply. And when the government said, even in their manifesto, we'll pursue an export-led growth, you know, it also touches on the labor sector, right, doesn't it?
Well, there are positive and negative aspects of that. The positive part is, you know, our remittance has become our largest source of foreign exchange. If you look at the US, you have a lot of people going there and having outstanding careers and sending money back to Kenya. I think it's only last month that those numbers went down, but generally, remittance dollars have become the leading source of dollars. We're above tea and horticulture. So that's the good story. And also they get exposure and they're able to come back and bring that technological transfer to Kenya. But there is a negative side to it, because, you know, Jeffrey Sachs did a research that showed people naturally want to work in places where they grew up, where they're familiar. So a lot of these people, they are going because they can't find places close to home. So you find couples where a husband has to work in Dubai, the wife has to stay in Kenya. So it brings all sorts of social issues. So I think it's still very important we take labor as a factor of production and ask ourselves, before we start exporting all this labor, you know, are we maximizing the opportunities in this country? And I don't think we are. So I think it's still more, there's an urgency towards creating more jobs, and that's why I keep saying we need to have these statistics on a monthly level, like in the US. Every first Friday, they release this number. So there's more policy activity, you know, when the policy is working, when it's not working. Otherwise, if you're to wait for the economic survey every April, the policy interventions that you can do are actually very, very minimal.
Definitely. We're looking, because the survey breaks down sector by sector, and initially I think we were trying to have a discussion around agriculture and Kenya being an agriculture-backed society, economy,
yes,
so to put it. And still, I think the figure is at 23% thereabout,
yes,
GDP contribution. And what we saw last year with the drought situation, none of the experts was telling me, Noah, if the contribution of agriculture to GDP goes down, I think we should be happy about that, because it means either other sectors are coming up. We want the manufacturing, all these other sectors, health sector, education sector, to come up strongly.
yes.
And also we find a way of revamping our agriculture so that it's not rain-based. I mean, Ofcaf was the expert, biting more than he could chew in that situation.
Yes, I think he had a very good idea, because agriculture actually contributed about 23% to GDP. Then the service sector, that is the financial, the banking sector, contributed about 64% to the GDP, and about 17% was now the manufacturing sector and the industrial sector. Now, in terms of that, we should be happy when agriculture is not contributing so much to the percentage of the GDP. I think that's a good thing, but also it is not a very good thing, because for last year, the manufacturing sector did not contribute as much, because it was relying on agriculture for it to do production. Especially for the wing of manufacturing that is called agro manufacturing, that relies on agricultural produce to add value. So when the agriculture sector does not do well, also the manufacturing sector does not do well. So there is some kind of interdependence between all these sectors. But all in all, if agriculture can grow in absolute terms, but reduce in terms of percentage contribution to the GDP, meaning that other sectors like manufacturing will have contributed more in percentage-wise to the GDP, and also the service sector.
Okay, Ken?
Now that Daktari is making quotes today, I think I should also have a quote. And it was Thomas Sankara who said that he who feeds a country controls a country.
Yes.
So it's very important that Kenya continues to feed itself. The country like the US, the most industrialized countries, such as the US, still have a very vibrant agriculture sector. So it is not true that a shrinking share of agriculture is a good thing. We need to ask ourselves, why are we importing 95% of our wheat when we have the lands in Narok? When you import your grains, you expose yourself to, if there's a Russia-Ukraine crisis and you're cut off, if there's COVID. So during COVID, many countries sort of cut off exports of grain. So it's very important that, yes, as we are industrializing as a country, we really have to remember that food is a primary industry, and you cannot outsource that responsibility to another country. Okay. In the event that you're in war with that country, you almost you become subservient.
Yeah, definitely. Gentlemen, we've come to the end of this, and in the spirit of quotes, you're making very heavy quotes, gentlemen. Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah. Me, I'm going to quote one of us here.
Yes.
His name is Ken Gishinga, and he says that, don't do anything I wouldn't do this weekend. Yes. Daktari and Ken Gishinga, we appreciate your time right here on this chat, and also thank you very much for joining us in this journey. What an analysis we've had on the two biggest stories, matters to do with the Finance Bill 2023 and also the Economic Survey report.